Hello everyone. This is the video presentation of our paper Bangla Book, a large-scale Bangla dataset for sentiment analysis from book reviews, which was accepted this year in the findings of ACL 2023. I am Syed Rifat Rayyan and my co-authors are Mohsinul Kabir, Ubaid bin Mahfuz, Hassan Mahmoud and Muhammad Kamrul Hassan. We are all affiliated with the Systems and Software Lab of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of the Islamic University of Technology, located in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So our work involves sentiment analysis of product reviews written in the Bangla language. Even though Bangla is the sixth most spoken language in the world, it is still under-resourced compared to the widely used languages. The existing works in Bangla sentiment analysis involve datasets that are either small in size or are publicly unavailable. Most of these datasets focus on social media content and comments in online newspaper portals, and so there is a substantial deficiency of datasets with product-specific review samples. The tonal and linguistic analysis of consumer sentiment from reviews is important because it can help businesses to gain valuable insights into customer attitudes, preferences, and experiences, which can then be leveraged to improve products and services, design targeted marketing campaigns, and make more informed business decisions. Keeping these points in mind and to ameliorate the said issues, we have introduced the Bangla Book dataset, which is currently the largest Bangla sentiment analysis dataset, consisting of about 158,000 samples of book reviews. And the review samples were collected from two online bookshops, namely Rokomari and Wafi Life. Now let's talk about the data collection process. At first, we made a list of the URLs of the author profiles in the online bookshops. Now for each author, we collected the URLs of the books written by the author. For each book, we scraped some of the available information such as the book title, the author names, the genre, the review texts, their timestamps, and the corresponding ratings. These two parts of the workflow are continuously repeated until all the author URLs and the book URLs are exhausted. The collected review samples are saved in a CSV file for later use. Now that we have the review samples extracted, we need to label, translate, and validate them. For each review sample, we first check if it has a rating or not. If it does not have a rating, then it is discarded. Otherwise, the samples are labeled positive, neutral, or negative based on the rating value. If the rating is greater than or equal to 4, then the sample is labeled positive. If the rating is equal to 3, then the sample is labeled neutral, and otherwise if the rating is less than or equal to 2, then it is labeled negative. After this step, the language of the review text is checked. If it is written in pure Bangla, the sample is green-lit as good to go. Otherwise, however, if the language is in Romanized Bangla or a mixture of Bangla or English, it is translated to pure Bangla and then sent for manual evaluation. Upon seeing any mistranslation, the evaluator is responsible for manually amending the translated version. This whole process is repeated until all the curated review samples are exhausted. After that, the samples are stored in CSV file. Now let's talk about the details of the labeling process. Since our labeling process was totally automatic, we had to justify a positive correlation between the rating of the review and the sentiment conveyed by the review. For this, we randomly selected 10% of the review samples, and we found that about 96.7% of the samples were correctly labeled, which means their rating and their sentiment were agreeing with each other. However, a minuscule 3.41% of the samples were incongruously labeled, and by incongruous we mean that samples that were rated very highly but conveyed a negative sentiment, and samples which are rated very low but conveyed a positive sentiment. And in case of the translation process, we used a Python package called Google Trans to convert the Romanized Bangla text and the mixture of Bangla and English to English, and about 68,000 of the samples were subject to this translation process. The manual evaluation process was conducted by postgraduate native Bangla speakers, and they were responsible for this tail end of the workflow. Now let's talk about the statistical analysis. The first key takeaway from this is that even though our dataset has 158,000 samples, a vast majority of the samples were taken from the Rokomari website, and a very minority of the samples were taken from the Wafi Life website. Uh, More than 44 million tokens are present in our dataset in aggregate, and the average word length of a single review is about 281.08. From the donut chart below, which respectively portray the sentiment distribution and the rating distribution, the first clear thing that we can take away from this is our data set is pretty imbalanced, which means there is an overwhelming number of positively labeled samples. However, this is reflective of the real world scenario because consumers tend to review products if they have a positive opinion about it, which in turn causes the manifestation or existence of a high number of positive review samples. At the right, you can see a donut chart which portrays the sentiment distribution of the top 5 most popular genres. They are arranged in clockwise order, starting from 1, which is the contemporary novel category, the Islamic ideals and doctrines category, the Islamic books self-development category, the student life self-development category, and the translated books self-development and motivation category, and meditation category, sorry. We can gain some salient insights from the popularity of these genres. Contemporary novels are best sellers as they reflect current events, social issues, and trends, making them relatable and thought-provoking for the readers, while self-help and religious books provide guidance, inspiration, and a sense of purpose, catering to individuals' quests for personal growth and spiritual fulfillment. Now, a series of baseline models with combinations of different lexical and semantic features are chosen to evaluate the Bangla book dataset. For the lexical features, we extract bag of words, character n-grams, and word n-grams from the reviews, as these representations have performed well in different classification tasks. The value of n were 1, 2, and 3. After extracting the features, they were vectorized using TF-IDF and count vectorizer and trained on a series of machine learning models such as random forest, XGBoost, linear SVM, logistic regression, multinomial naive Bayes, LSTM with GloVe, BanglaBART Bayes uncased by Sarkar 2020, and BanglaBART large, which also has the same number of parameters, but it was pre-trained on about 208 billion tokens and was proposed by Bhattacharjee et al. 2022. And due to the recent success of BART in various downstream NLP tasks, we use those BanglaBART models. For evaluating the performance, we used F1 scores and weighted F1 scores given the imbalanced nature of our dataset, and we maintained a 70:20:10 train, test, and validation split for all the models. Now, this table summarizes the experimental results for BanglaBook. It shows that BanglaBART large outperforms all other models by a clear margin. Also, the combination of word and character 2 grams and word and character trigrams or 3 grams perform exceptionally well with respective classifiers. Our hypothesis is that these two features result in a large number of unique word and character combinations, aiding the model's ability to generalize effectively across categories. The bag of words feature extraction process is inept at classifying the corresponding categories because of its inability to capture critical contextual information and nuance. Although word unigram does not outperform word bigram and word trigram, it does predict the neutral class well. Both the pre-trained BART models perform fairly consistently across all categories on the BanglaBook dataset, demonstrating the usefulness of contextual understanding and transfer learning in classification tasks, even in low resource languages like Bangla. The LSTM model with GloVe embedding recognizes the negative and positive classes very marginally and fails to completely identify the neutral category. It is also notable that SVM with bigram and trigram achieves perfect scores in the positive class. In the positive class, all the models produce excellent classification results, while some models perform reasonably well in the negative class. Nearby, all the models perform poorly in the neutral class. The class imbalance of the dataset is one obvious cause of the fluctuation in results. The confusion matrix for Banglabart on our dataset reveals that most of the negative and neutral samples are misclassified as positive samples by the classifiers. To further analyze the misclassifications, we examine the word unigrams of these three classes. We find that about 124,000 unique word unigrams for the positive class exist, and about 20,000 unique word unigrams for the negative class exist, and about 19,000 unique word unigrams for the neutral class exist. 77.57% of the word unigrams from the neutral class and 79.83% of word unigrams from the negative class are found in the positive class. This is why there is a lack of distinctive words in the negative and neutral classes, which inevitably prevented the feature-based models from generalizing. Now, understanding the morphology and negation patterns of a language holds paramount significance in the realm of sentiment analysis, because negation can alter the meaning of words and phrases, thereby affecting the overall sentiment conveyed by a text. From the linguistic typological standpoint, Bangla is categorized as a subject-object-verb or SOV language, because the subject, object and verb generally adhere to the said order in its sentential structure. For example, so the first example here says Goru ghash khai, which translates to cows eat grass in English. But if we were to place the translated words verbatim as they appear in the Bangla original text, it would look something like cows grass eat, which means subject, object and then verb appears in the sentence. And the same goes for the second example, Ami bhat khai, which translates to I eat rice. But if we were to place the translated words verbatim in the order that they appear in the original Bangla text, we would see something like I rice eat. And this is the morphology of Bangla. Now let's see some examples on how negation constructs are used in Bangla. For example, the word pari here means the ability to be able, or to be able to can. If we use the suffix ni after this word, it flips the polarity of the word, thereby reversing the sentiment expressed by the sentence. And the corresponding translation, we can see that the word could became the word couldn't, which is the same as the word parini. We can use the word na after a adjective or before a non-finite verb to invert the polarity of a sentence. For example, the second example here, হুমায়ুন আহমেদ লিখেছেন এই বইটার উপরে তিনি নিজেও সন্তুষ্ট না. The translation is, of course, Humayun Ahmed wrote that he himself is not satisfied with this book. The purpose of the word not in here is the same as the purpose of the word na here. Now, Bangla also uses negative affixes to account for double negatives. We can see two examples here, although they are not double negatives per se, but we'll see the use of prefixes here. Now, prefixes have two different allophones in Bangla depending on whether the root word precedes a consonant or a vowel. For example, the prefix here is o. It comes before the root word. Purnota means completeness, and if we place the prefix o before Purnota, it translates to incompleteness, which is the opposite of completeness. And if the preceding something like onto, where o is a vowel in Bangla, it becomes ononto, which means the prefix here is on instead of o, and the English translation of ononto is never ending or infinite. So we can look at two more examples here. For example, the prefix ni came before the word olosh, which flipped its and sedentary, and the corresponding English translation here is relentless. So the purpose of the word suffix less here plays the same role as the prefix ni in this case, in the case of nirolosh. And in the second example here, we can see the word bhitti is followed by the word suffix hin. So bhitti means basis or an undergirding structure, and the word hin basically change the meaning to baseless, or the thing which has no basis. So the sentence is এরকম ভিত্তিহীন কাল্পনিক গল্প শিশুদের না পড়াই ভালো, which translates to it is better for children not to read such baseless. So the negative sentiment is very nuanced in Bangla language, as every occurrence of negative is intertwined with features like tense, hierarchy of syntax, verb status, case-specific issues, and sequential arrangement of words. So in this paper, we introduced a large-scale dataset, Bangla Book, consisting of about 158,000 samples of book reviews collected from online bookshops written in the Bangla language. This is the largest dataset of Bangla sentiment analysis to the best of our knowledge. We perform an analysis of the dataset's statistical characteristics, employ various machine learning techniques to establish a performance benchmark for validating the dataset, and also conduct a thorough evaluation of the classification errors. Now we can list down some possible avenues of improvement in our work. For example, our manipulation process was fully automatic. If we adopt a manual of the discarded sample because they did not contain a rating, or because they were untranslatable. Now the pool of pre-trained language models in Bangla is pretty shallow. Only Bangla BART and Bangla T5 and Bangla GPT-2 exists, and in the future, if any better pre-trained language emerge Bangla language, we could fine-tune that model on our dataset and check the performance. And even though our dataset is pretty imbalanced, we have already said that it reflects the real life scenario. However, we do recognize the importance of a balanced dataset in training machine learning and deep learning models. So in the future, we could employ some effort in this regard to balance the dataset. And these are the research works that we have cited in this presentation. Thank you very much for listening. You can contact us on Twitter using the emails and the Twitter given below. Have a nice day. Have a good